My beloved child, come closer and listen with your heart wide open. For tonight, a whisper from heaven has entered my spirit, and I feel the weight of it like fire resting upon my shoulders. I speak not as a man full of his own thoughts, but as a father who has walked long in the ways of the Lord, carrying the cries and hopes of his people. And now, with trembling joy, I bring to you a message that has stirred the heavens themselves. There is a movement in the air, a holy stirring, like the flutter of wings touching the edge of this world. And in this sacred stirring, the Archangel of God, Michael, the Mighty One, the Defender, the Warrior of the Most High, has released a divine whisper. Ah, my child, it is a whisper that carries weight heavier than storms and sweetness greater than rivers of honey. It is a whisper declaring, very good news is happening in the next hours. Do not ignore it, but hear me, my child. Do not take this as a prediction of earthly clocks or as a promise tied to the ticking of a watch. No, no. The heavens do not speak in hours the way men do. When the Spirit says in the next 3 hours, it is to awaken urgency inside the soul. It is to ignite awareness, to strengthen your readiness, to open the eyes of your heart, so you do not sleep through the moment God chooses to breathe upon your life. Even as I speak, I sense someone's heart trembling, someone's spirit awakening. Something inside you is saying, this word is for me. And my beloved child, you are right. For the Lord would not bring your ears here unless there was a divine seed meant to be planted in the soil of your spirit. Listen. There are times in life when heaven bends low. Times when angels stand at the edge of your story waiting for you to say, I am ready. Times when breakthroughs, miracles, and long-awaited answers begin to gather like rain clouds just before the downpour. And when such times come, heaven always sends a warning. Not a warning to frighten you, but a warning to awaken you. That is why this message is placed before you now. For Archangel Michael does not speak lightly. He is the guardian of God's people, the captain of heavenly armies, the one who stands where spiritual battles rage the fiercest. When he says good news is coming, it means the heavens have already moved. Something long held back has been released. Something long fought for has been won. Something long prayed over is now opening. But, my beloved child, the danger is not in heaven's delay, no. The danger is in human ignorance, in the casual shrug, in the callous heart that says, I will listen later. This is why the message says, don't make the mistake of ignoring this. Because the window of spiritual sensitivity is small. When God touches your spirit, that moment is holy. So sit with me now. Breathe slow. Let your heart awaken. For this prophetic journey has just begun, and I promise you, what you are about to hear will bless you deeply. My beloved child, let your spirit stay open as we continue this sacred journey together. For before any great blessing descends, before any divine announcement unfolds, something always stirs in the unseen realms. It begins softly, like the first breeze that touches the leaves before a mighty rain. And in these moments, heaven becomes active, vibrant, alert, as though creation itself is taking a deep breath in anticipation of what God is about to release. You must understand, my child, that nothing in the kingdom of heaven happens casually. Every shift, Every whisper, every stirring is part of a divine orchestration, a heavenly preparation. And when good news is set on the path toward your life, the atmosphere around you begins to change long before you ever see the evidence with your eyes. These moments are precious, and they are easy to miss if one is not spiritually awake. As I speak to you, I feel the weight of this truth resting deep in my heart. It is as though the Lord Himself is saying, "Tell them to pay attention. Tell them to be watchful. Tell them heaven is moving on their behalf even now." And I bring these words to you not as mere encouragement, but as the voice of a father who longs for his children to recognize the signs of divine movement. Imagine with me, my child, how a river responds when rain begins to gather miles away. Long before the first drop touches the ground near you, the river begins to swell, to shift, to prepare for what is coming. The ground begins to soften. The air becomes heavy with expectancy. Creation knows before humans do that something is on the way. So it is in the spiritual world. Heaven feels the movement before earth does. And this movement began the moment the message of good news was released. For when Archangel Michael stirs, all of heaven is alerted. Angels move into position. Prayers that have long been held in sacred bowls before the throne begin to be tipped forward. Breakthroughs that seemed stuck suddenly begin to loosen. It is not something you see with the eye. It is something you sense, something you discern, something you feel pulling at the edges of your spirit. Perhaps you have recently felt a strange restlessness, a tug in your heart that you could not explain. Or maybe you felt unusually emotional, reflective, or aware. These are not accidents, my child. These are signs of heavenly stirring. When God prepares to shift something in your life, your spirit feels the tremble of that movement before your mind understands it. Let me tell you a story. Long ago, there was a woman in our village who had prayed for many years for restoration and her family. She grew weary, worn, discouraged. But one day, she came to me with tears in her eyes and said, "Father, I do not know why, but I feel something in the air. It feels like peace is coming." There was still no evidence around her. Nothing had changed in her home. But heaven had already begun its stirring. Within days, hearts began to soften. Words of reconciliation flowed. A family that had been fractured for years began to heal. And when I asked her later how she knew, she simply said, "I felt it before I saw it." That, my beloved child, is what I feel in my spirit now. Heaven has begun its movement, and you may feel the ripple of it already. You may not be able to understand it fully, but you can sense that something is shifting. Something is being aligned. Something is being prepared. This is why divine messages come before divine manifestations. God alerts you so you will not miss what He is preparing. Heaven whispers so that you stay ready, not distracted. You must never overlook these whispers, for they are the beginning of your blessing, the early signs of your breakthrough. So, as you listen now, recognize that you are not here by accident. If this message has found you, it is because heaven is already stirring around your life. Something long awaited is drawing near. Something prayed for is awakening. Something closed is beginning to open. My beloved child, breathe deeply and let your spirit rise in hope. For when heaven begins to stir, blessings follow without fail. My beloved child, lean in even closer now, for what I am about to share carries deep spiritual meaning. You have heard the message that something significant is near, but now we must understand why the next 3 hours were mentioned in the divine whisper. Remember, heaven does not count time as men do. When the Spirit speaks of hours, it speaks not of clocks, but of windows. Windows of sensitivity. Windows of obedience. Windows where the soul must stay awake. The phrase next 3 hours is not a countdown to an event, but a revelation of urgency. It means that this moment in your life, this very season, is sensitive and holy. It means you are standing inside a divine window where blessings, clarity, and breakthroughs are easier to receive than at any other time. Heaven sometimes opens such windows to draw you close, to sharpen your awareness, to awaken your heart, so you do not sleep through your blessing. In Scripture, God often used short prophetic time frames to awaken attentiveness. Jonah said, 40 days. Jesus in Gethsemane asked the disciples to watch with him 1 hour. Elijah called down fire within moments. Each short time represented urgency, a spiritual alert, a divine call to attention. Not because God needed that time, but because humans did. So when the message says next 3 hours, it is heaven telling you, stay awake, stay soft, stay attentive, do not drift. In these moments, spiritual clarity becomes sharp like a blade. The heart becomes easier to reach. The spirit becomes quicker to respond. Heaven is closer than usual. My beloved child, let me tell you something true and deeply mysterious. There are moments in life where your future leans toward you. It bends close, like a parent kneeling to speak gently to a child. And when that happens, heaven often gives a signal, so you will not overlook your moment of visitation. That is what this message is doing for you right now. Let me share a story from many years ago. There was a young man in our congregation who had prayed for direction. He had prayed for clarity about his calling, his purpose, his path. One day, he came to me and said, "Father, I feel like something is shifting, but I do not know what it is." I told him, "Stay aware, my son. Heaven is opening a window for you." Within hours, a stranger crossed his path and spoke a word that confirmed everything he had been wrestling with. He later told me that if he had ignored the stirring, if he had distracted himself with the noise of life, he would have missed that moment entirely. What heaven meant as direction could have slipped past him like a whisper in the wind. This is the nature of divine timing. When heaven leans in, you must lean in as well. And there is another reason why the message speaks of hours, to remind you that spiritual blessings do not always wait. When the heart is ready and heaven moves, opportunities pass quickly. Not because God withholds, but because distractions steal attention, fear steals obedience, and delay steals blessing. Think of the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 were ready. 5 were not. The bridegroom came at a moment that seemed sudden, but it was not sudden to those who were prepared. They understood that readiness is not about predicting a moment, but honoring it when it comes. And so it is with you. My beloved child, the mention of 3 hours is a sacred invitation. It is a call to spiritual readiness, a call to careful listening, a call to honor the movements happening around you in the unseen realm. Heaven is not telling you to stare at a clock. Heaven is telling you to awaken your spirit. Because when heaven releases good news, it often comes softly, quietly, like a gentle breeze brushing past your life. And only the awake soul receives it. Perhaps that is why you are here now, listening to these words. Something inside you knows that this moment is not ordinary. Something inside you senses the nearness of something divine. Something is unfolding, something is aligning, something is awakening. And the timing is not random. The message came now because you are standing in a transition, a turning point, a threshold where even the slightest spiritual attention can shift your life in ways you may not fully understand yet. So take this seriously, my beloved child. Let these words settle into your heart. Heaven is nearer than you think. The window is open. The stirring is active. And your spirit feels it already, even if your mind cannot explain it. My beloved child, as we journey deeper into this message, I want you to feel the weight of what I am about to say. For the greatest danger to a soul is not darkness, nor enemies, nor storms. The greatest danger is a quiet heart that ignores divine whispers. A whisper from heaven can change your life, but ignoring it can delay blessings that were meant to arrive swiftly. This is why the message you received came with urgency. It is heaven saying, do not overlook this moment. Throughout the scriptures, throughout history, throughout the stories of the saints and the testimonies of the humble, you will find one tragic pattern. People often miss what heaven is doing simply because the whisper was too soft, too gentle, too easy to disregard. God rarely shouts. Angels rarely thunder. Heaven speaks most often in quiet nudges, in gentle impressions, in tender warnings that can be brushed off if the heart is distracted. Let me tell you a story, my child. There was once a man who prayed for a breakthrough for many years. He asked for signs, for direction, for clarity. One evening, he felt a small prompting to go visit an elderly woman in the village. He ignored it. He felt it again the next day. He ignored it. The third day, he finally obeyed. When he visited her, the woman gave him a message that confirmed the very answer he had been seeking. He later told me, with tears in his eyes, "Father, I almost missed my blessing because the voice was too gentle." This is why God's whisper must never be ignored. Heaven often speaks softly to test the attentiveness of your spirit. The gentleness of the voice is not to hide the blessing. It is to reveal the heart. Consider the story of Elijah. When the prophet stood on the mountain waiting for God, the wind came, but God was not in it. The earthquake came, but God was not in it. The fire came, but God was not in it. Then, after all the noise, came a whisper. And that whisper carried the fullness of God's presence. A whisper, my beloved child. Not a storm, not a shout, not a shaking. A whisper. How many times have people waiting for thunder ignored the whisper that held their miracle? This is why the message warns you not to ignore what heaven is stirring around you now. Not because something frightening will happen, but because something precious is being offered. And precious things require careful attention. I remember a woman, in our congregation many years ago. She had a dream from God 3 nights in a row, a gentle dream telling her to forgive someone she had held bitterness against for years. She ignored the dreams each time, thinking they were nothing more than her own thoughts. But after she ignored them, her heart grew heavy, her prayers felt dry, and peace left her home. When she finally came to me and shared the dreams, she wept and said, "I did not know God was speaking. I thought it was only my imagination." After she obeyed the whisper, her life transformed. But she carried a quiet sorrow knowing she delayed the miracle by resisting the gentle call of God. My beloved child, this is why I speak to you with tenderness and firmness. It is possible to miss what heaven is doing simply by shrugging it off, delaying it, or underestimating it. Good news can walk right past a person who is spiritually asleep. A blessing can hover near a person who is too distracted to reach for it. Heaven can be moving, yet the heart can be still. And that is why the Archangel's message was wrapped with warning. It is not a threat. It is a mercy. Heaven is saying, be alert. Be attentive. Do not overlook the moment. There are seasons when God speaks loudly, and there are seasons when God speaks softly. But in both, He desires that His children hear Him. And now, in this moment of your life, the whisper is very gentle, very sacred, very purposeful. You must not dismiss it. You must not drift away from it. You must not assume it can wait for another day. My beloved child, hear me now. Heaven is moving. Do not ignore the movement. God is whispering. Do not ignore the whisper. Angels are aligning. Do not ignore the alignment. Good news is drawing near. Do not let it pass by unnoticed. My beloved child, as we step into this next part of the message, I want you to take a slow breath and allow your heart to settle. For what I am about to speak carries both tenderness and truth. It is not spoken to frighten you, but to awaken you in a way that protects your destiny. Heaven never warns without purpose. Heaven never cautions without love. And when the message says you will cry if you skip what heaven is revealing, it is not speaking of punishment, but of the sorrow that comes from missed moments, missed blessings, missed divine alignments. Let me speak to you gently, my child, because many souls have walked through life carrying unnecessary pain simply because they underestimated the importance of their spiritual moments. There is a kind of sorrow that does not come from tragedy or loss, but from realizing too late that heaven was trying to help, trying to guide, trying to open a door, and the heart was too distracted to walk through it. This is the kind of sorrow the message warns you about. I have seen it many times in my years as a shepherd. People who prayed with passion, but ignored the moment when God finally responded. People who asked for signs, but overlooked the signs when they came in quiet, simple ways. People who begged for direction, but turned away when heaven whispered the answer because the whisper did not match the expectation. Once, there was a young woman who came to me in tears. She said, "Father, I feel like God has forgotten me." But as she shared her story, I realized something heartbreaking. God had not forgotten her at all. He had sent guidance through dreams, through counsel, through inner promptings, through unexpected conversations. But each time, she brushed them aside. She waited for something dramatic, something loud, something undeniable. And because of that, she missed the gentle pathways God had placed in front of her. She told me, with trembling voice, if only I had listened earlier, I would not be in this pain now. That is the crying the message warns against. The tears of realization. The sorrow of delay. The ache of knowing something precious was within reach, yet slipped away because the heart hesitated. My beloved child, heaven never desires you to cry such tears. Heaven warns you so you can avoid them. This is why the message says, do not ignore this. It is not to frighten you. It is to shield you from future regret. Imagine a traveler on a long road who sees a sign pointing to shelter before the coming storm. If he ignores it, he will walk straight into the rain, soaked and cold. But if he listens, he will find warmth and safety. The sign did not cause the storm. It protected him from it. Heaven's warnings work exactly the same way. They are invitations. They are protections. They are coverings over your destiny. This moment in your life is sensitive. Heaven is moving around you. Angels are positioning themselves. Something good, something divinely prepared, something long awaited is drawing near. But if the heart becomes careless, if the spirit grows dull, if the message is brushed off, the blessing may still come, but it will take longer, feel heavier, or arrive through unnecessary struggle. When the message says you will cry if you skip this, it means that what heaven is releasing now is important enough that missing it would wound your heart deeply later. This is not about fear. It is about value. The value of what God is offering you in this moment is great. You must treat it as holy. So let your heart stay awake. Do not drift. Do not treat these words lightly. You are standing before a spiritual doorway, and heaven is urging you to walk through with attention and readiness. And my beloved child, before I close this part, let me speak something gentle yet strong. When heaven releases a message this sacred, those who honor it, embrace it, and share it become carriers of light. They spread the word like lamps set on a hill, helping others awaken to their own divine moments. When you uplift this message, when you help it travel, when you join hands with the voice of heaven, you become part of the blessing itself. Do not hide what is holy. Carry it forward as though it were your duty, your calling, your offering. My beloved child, come close again, for in this part of the journey, we step into something deeper, something more sacred than what we have touched so far. Up to this moment, we have spoken about heaven stirring, about urgency, about the danger of ignoring divine whispers. But now, we step into the vision itself. Now we speak of the heavenly scroll that has been opened. And when heaven opens a scroll, it means a divine decree has been released. It means something that was once sealed is now revealed. It means a blessing long held in the invisible realm is finally being released into the world. My child, whenever Archangel Michael appears in Scripture or in the visions of the prophets, he is never casual. He appears when battles shift. He appears when destinies turn. He appears when God's people need defending, strengthening, or awakening. And in this moment, the message you received is tied to a scroll he has opened, a symbolic scroll, a spiritual scroll, one that carries the announcement of good news for your life. Let me help you see it. Close your eyes for a moment in your heart. Imagine standing upon a high place, a place where the air feels holy, where the ground beneath your feet seems to hum with the presence of God. And before you stands a mighty angel, radiant like lightning, yet gentle like a father who has watched you since the moment you were formed. In his hand is a scroll rolled tightly, bound with the seal of the Most High. You feel the weight of it even from afar. It carries authority. It carries finality. It carries purpose. And slowly, with the reverence of eternity, he breaks the seal. The sound echoes through the heavens, not like thunder but like a deep, ancient breath. And as he opens the scroll, you feel something release, not in the sky, not on the ground, but inside your spirit. It is the sense that something long delayed is now permitted. Something long fought for is now granted. Something long prayed for is now answered. This is what it means for the scroll to be open. Throughout the scriptures, scrolls represent divine decisions. They represent heavenly verdicts, moments when God says, "It is done." When Daniel saw visions of scrolls, nations shifted. When Ezekiel ate the scroll, revelation flooded his spirit. When John saw the Lamb open the seals, heaven's decrees unfolded one after another. And now, in a symbolic way, heaven is showing you that a scroll bearing your name, your destiny, your prayers, your breakthrough has been unsealed. My beloved child, let me tell you why this matters. There are two stages to every blessing: the heavenly release and the earthly manifestation. Many times, heaven releases something long before you see it on earth. The scroll opening means the release has already happened. The good news is already spoken. The verdict is already written. The shift has already begun in the unseen realm. What you are waiting for is the earth catching up to what heaven has already declared. Sometimes people pray and feel nothing is happening, when in truth, the scroll is already open. The delay is simply the journey from the invisible to the visible. A seed planted must push through soil before it becomes a sprout. A decree spoken in heaven must pass through time before it becomes a testimony in your life. I once ministered to a man who had been praying for restoration in his health. For months he felt nothing changing. But one night, during prayer, I saw a vision of a scroll being opened over his life. I told him the release has happened. He looked confused, for his body still felt the same. But within weeks, healing began to manifest slowly, steadily, beautifully. When he returned, he said, "The moment you spoke, something inside me shifted, even though I couldn't see it yet." That is the power of an open scroll. My child, the message you received is not merely a word. It is evidence that heaven has already acted. Michael does not whisper before the scroll opens. He whispers after. He speaks when the process has begun, not when it is uncertain. And if the Archangel himself brings the message, it means the decree carries weight, authority, and protection. So take comfort now. Let this truth settle in your heart. You are not waiting for heaven to decide. Heaven has already decided. You are not waiting for God to hear you. He has already heard. The scroll is open. The decree is released. The blessing has begun its journey toward you. My beloved child, now that we have seen the heavenly scroll opened and the decree released, we must speak of what happens next. For when heaven releases a word, something begins to shift, not only above you, but around you and within you. The spiritual atmosphere starts to transform, often quietly at first, like dawn breaking before the sun fully rises. And though your natural eyes may not yet see anything new, your spirit can sense that something is unfolding, something is moving, something is changing. This is the sacred stage where heaven aligns the path before the blessing arrives. It is the moment when invisible hands begin to remove obstacles you did not even realize were standing in your way. Sometimes God clears your path without ever announcing the work He is doing. And sometimes the clearing is so subtle that people mistake the silence for inactivity. But my child, nothing could be farther from the truth. Silence in the spirit often means construction in the unseen. Years ago, I spoke with a man who felt that nothing in his life was changing. He prayed, he waited, he hoped, yet everything around him felt still. But what he did not know was that heaven had already begun the transformation. The people who were blocking him began to move out of his path. Opportunities that would have harmed him began to close. New connections began forming quietly behind the curtain of time. And when the blessing finally appeared before him, he realized that the stillness he once feared was actually God rearranging everything for his good. This is exactly what happens when a decree is released. Heaven begins a transformation that your natural senses cannot measure. Angels move into place. Circumstances shift. The hearts of people soften or harden according to God's plan. Doors that once remained stubbornly shut begin to loosen at the hinges. And sometimes, the first sign of change is not a visible blessing, but the removal of things that are not meant to travel with you into your next season. My beloved child, do not underestimate what is happening right now around your life. For when Archangel Michael steps forward, the first thing he does is war on your behalf. He clears away spiritual resistance. He breaks battles that you did not even know were being fought for you. He strengthens the atmosphere around your spirit so that the blessing heaven released can reach you without interruption. Imagine, for a moment, a mighty warrior standing on a hill, lifting his sword as light flows from it like fire. Each swing of that sword cuts away the invisible chains that once held you. Each step he takes shakes the ground where old obstacles stood. His presence alone causes darkness to retreat, confusion to scatter, and delays to dissolve. This is the transformation that begins when Michael moves. Sometimes, my child, you will feel this transformation as a sudden peace that has no explanation. Sometimes it arrives as clarity, a sense that your mind is clearing after a long fog. Sometimes it feels like strength rising in your bones, even though nothing external has changed yet. And sometimes it feels like a holy restlessness pushing you away from old patterns, old circles, old ways of thinking. All of this is evidence of the shift taking place. There was once a woman in our church who felt this restlessness. She came to me saying, "Father, I don't know what's happening. I feel like something is moving ahead of me, but I can't see it." I smiled and told her, that is the evidence of breakthrough. Before blessings arrive, heaven always rearranges the room. Within weeks, her life began unfolding in ways she never expected. New opportunities, restored relationships, unexpected provision. But the transformation began long before the blessings appeared. It began when the decree was released. This is the season you are in now, my beloved child. The transformation has already begun. Heaven is not waiting. Heaven is working. What seemed impossible months ago is now shifting quietly beneath the surface. What once felt blocked is now loosening. What once felt delayed is now being aligned. And though your eyes may not yet see the full picture, your spirit knows the moment is near. So do not grow weary. Do not doubt the unseen movements of God. Trust the shift. Trust the stirring. Trust the transformation that is in motion even now. For when heaven begins to rearrange your story, nothing on earth can stop what is coming. The blessing is not just approaching, it is unfolding. My beloved child, when your heart is ready, simply say, Write Part 8. My beloved child, now that you understand how heaven transforms the atmosphere around you, we must speak of something even more important, your role in receiving the good news that has been released. For every blessing God sends requires a posture of the heart. Heaven may open doors, angels may move, the scroll may be unsealed, but the fullness of your blessing flows most freely when your spirit is ready, willing, and aligned with what God is doing. Many people believe that blessings come automatically. But my child, that is not how the spiritual world works. God does not force good news upon a closed heart. Heaven does not pour living water into vessels that are turned upside down. And so, the tender question rises before you now. Are you positioned to receive what heaven has already begun? Your role begins with openness. A heart that is open is like fertile soil. When the seed of blessing lands upon it, it grows without struggle. But a closed heart, weighed down by doubt, fear, or past disappointments, can push away the very miracle that has been sent. Sometimes the biggest enemy of a new blessing is the memory of old pain. Sometimes people stay so focused on what went wrong before that they cannot recognize what is going right now. My beloved child, release the weight of yesterday. Do not let old wounds block new wonders. Heaven does not consult your past when planning your future. And God's blessings do not shrink because of what you have endured. Your role now is to open your heart like a window facing the morning light. Allow hope to enter again. Allow expectation to breathe again. For a heart that is ready to receive will never miss what heaven is sending. Your role also includes listening. Not merely with your ears, but with your spirit. Heaven speaks in many ways, through peace, through impressions, through sudden clarity, through scripture, through the gentle nudges that pull your attention to a new direction. If you quiet your heart, you will hear more than you expect. If you still your thoughts, you will sense more than you knew was possible. There was a young man once who told me, "Father, I don't hear God." But when I asked him to describe the moments he felt pulled towards certain decisions, he realized that heaven had been speaking to him for years. He only expected the voice to come loudly, so he didn't recognize it in its gentle form. When he learned to listen with his spirit, he began receiving guidance that changed his entire life. Your role, my child, is to listen with softness. The softer the heart, the louder heaven becomes. Another part of your role is willingness. Heaven may present opportunities, but it is your willingness that turns an opportunity into a breakthrough. Good news may arrive, but if fear keeps you from stepping forward, the blessing may remain untouched. Blessings rarely fall into your lap. They are invitations. They require movement. They require obedience. They require faith. I once counseled a woman who was waiting for a financial breakthrough. Doors began opening for her, small and simple at first. But each time, she hesitated. She told herself it was not enough, not big enough, not what she imagined. And so she ignored the small blessings, not realizing they were stepping stones toward the larger one she prayed for. When she finally opened herself to what heaven was offering, everything began to accelerate. Sometimes, your role is simply to say yes, even if the blessing looks different than expected. And my child, your role includes gratitude. Gratitude is the magnet that pulls future blessings closer. A thankful heart creates a spiritual environment where miracles grow easily. When you thank God for what you do not yet see, you declare that you trust Him more than circumstances. And that trust opens doors you did not even know existed. But above all, your role is to stay awake. Spiritually awake. Emotionally awake. Awake enough to recognize the moment heaven brushes past you. Awake enough to rise when God calls your name. Awake enough to move when the path is cleared. Do not sleep through your blessing, my beloved child. Do not drift through this divine moment unaware. You are standing in a sacred season. Heaven is moving. Your spirit must move with it. For when your posture aligns with heaven's decree, nothing can stop the good news from reaching your life. When you are ready for the next revelation, simply say, "Right, Part 9. My beloved child, as we continue this sacred journey, we must now turn our hearts toward the signs that appear when heaven releases good news. For though the blessing may not yet be fully visible, heaven is kind. God is gracious. The Spirit is gentle. And they often place signs along your path so that you will know you are not imagining things. You are not being misled, and you are not walking blindly. These signs are like lanterns hung along a dark road, guiding your steps, assuring your heart, and preparing your spirit to receive what is coming. Many people think signs must be dramatic, loud, or extraordinary. But my child, that is not how heaven works. Most of the time, the signs of divine good news come softly, subtly, quietly, just enough for a sensitive heart to notice. This is why some recognize them and others do not. Heaven speaks in a language only awake souls can hear. One of the first signs is an unexplainable peace. A peace that does not match your circumstances. A peace that settles in your chest, even though nothing external has changed yet. You may wake up one morning and feel lighter, calmer, steadier, even though you cannot point to a reason. That peace is not random. It is the whisper of God saying, "I have gone before you. What you asked for has already begun." Another sign is spiritual restlessness. Not the restlessness of anxiety, but the restlessness of transition. It feels like something inside you no longer fits the old version of your life. It feels like your spirit is stretching, expanding, preparing for something greater. You may feel uncomfortable in places that once felt familiar. You may feel drawn toward new things even though you cannot explain why. This restlessness is heaven moving you toward alignment. When good news approaches, God often shifts your spirit before he shifts your reality. You may also notice that old connections begin to fade without effort. People who were once close may drift away. Situations that once held your attention may lose their pull. This is not loss. It is preparation. God often removes what cannot stay before he delivers what must arrive. When heavenly good news comes, it rarely comes into cluttered spaces. The Spirit makes room. My beloved child, sometimes the signs come through heightened sensitivity. Your prayers feel deeper. Your thoughts feel clearer. Your emotions feel more honest. You find yourself reflecting more, listening more, slowing down more. It is as though heaven turns the volume down on the world so you can hear its whisper more clearly. This is not coincidence. It is calling. There was once a woman in our congregation who experienced this sensitivity. She told me, "Father, I feel like something is watching over me in a new way." She felt guided, protected, nudged in small but precise directions. And within weeks, a breakthrough she had prayed for over 10 years finally unfolded. The signs were not loud. They were gentle reminders that heaven was near. You may also experience symbolic signs. Repeated numbers that catch your attention. Words that seem to appear everywhere. Encounters that feel divinely timed. Scripture that speaks directly to what you are facing. These signs are heaven's way of saying, you are on the right path. Keep moving. Another sign is unexpected strength. You may feel suddenly able to endure things that previously overwhelmed you. You may find courage rising where fear once lived. You may feel bold, confident, steady, even if you do not know why. This strength is not your own. It is the strength angels bring when good news is approaching. Heaven fortifies you so that when the blessing arrives, you are ready to receive and protect it. But perhaps the most powerful sign of all is a deep inner knowing. A gentle certainty. A quiet assurance that something is shifting in your favor. You cannot explain it to others. You can barely describe it yourself. You simply know. This knowing is the echo of heaven's decree inside your spirit. It is the resonance of the scroll that was open. It is the signature of God upon your heart. My beloved child, pay attention to the signs. They are not random. They are not meaningless. They are heaven's footprints leading you toward the good news that has already been released. Do not dismiss what your spirit senses. Do not ignore what your heart perceives. Heaven speaks in many ways, and those who honor the signs always walk into the blessing prepared for them. My beloved child, now we arrive at the final steps of this sacred journey. Take a gentle breath and allow your spirit to rest in the grace that has been poured out over you. For everything we have spoken, from the stirring in the heavens, to the open scroll, to the transformation around you, to the signs that follow, has been leading to this moment. a moment where your heart stands ready, your spirit awakened, your faith stirred like warm embers glowing in the quiet of the night. Hear me now with tenderness. Heaven does not bring you to the edge of revelation only to leave you empty-handed. If you have listened with an open heart, if you have allowed these words to settle within you, then I tell you truly, you are already standing inside the beginning of your good news. The shift has begun. The decree has been spoken. The angelic movement is active around your life even now. And the blessing that felt distant has already drawn near. My child, do not fear the days ahead. Do not tremble at the unknown. You are not walking alone. Heaven is not silent around you. The same God who stirred your heart to listen is the God who will complete what He has started. Trust the unfolding. Trust the timing. Trust the hand that has carried you this far. Everything you have walked through, everything you have endured, everything you have hoped for, it has all been preparing you for this divine moment. And before I close, let me whisper something into your spirit. When God gives a message this sacred, this heavy with purpose, it is never meant to be held by one heart alone. Those who carry revelation are called to shine it outward, to spread it, to let it touch others, to let it travel like light pass from torch to torch. My beloved child, if these words have stirred you, strengthened you, awakened you, then let them move beyond you. Let them flow from your hands and into the world as an act of devotion, a gesture of gratitude, a small offering back to the God who has spoken to you so gently. Carry this message forward, uplift it, support it, and help it reach others as though it were a holy assignment placed softly into your palms. May heaven watch over you. May the angels surround you. May your blessing unfold without delay. Amen.